Okay, so this topic is I'm going to talk about serialization. Serialization in Java, that is the process of converting the state to byte string. Okay, so suppose you have an object, okay, and state means the the values of class at a particular time. So that is the state at particular time. So what it does the it does the conversion from state, okay, to byte stream, so that byte stream can be converted to object. When I say byte stream, it is something like you will store the object state into the file, and when you need it you can get that object from that file. Okay, so it persists the object state, not the object itself. Okay, so once you are doing the serialization, so it will convert your object to byte stream. Okay, and that is nothing but its object state, not the object itself. Okay, so serialization is something like once you have some object, you are passing the object through the network. Okay, so this is something like that you are storing the object into a database. Okay, so where you have an object and you are extracting all the detail of object and and storing that those details into a database. Here, instead of database, you are storing into some file system. That file system you can transfer from one network to another network, or you can retrieve the object from that file system. Okay, so serialization is very important concept, and it is used where you have you want to maintain the state of some object. Okay, and you can get back that state from that object. Okay, so here the whole the process of serialization is just converting object state to byte stream, so that once you've done the serialization you can get back that object from that byte stream. So getting back the object from its byte stream, that is a reverse process, so that is called deserialization. So serialization and deserialization can go in parallel. Once you serialize it, you can get the value back from byte stream, that is deserialization. Okay, how do we achieve serialization in Java? So any class which I want to serialize, okay, so that I can be achieved by implementing a marker interface that is serializable. Serializable is the interface which doesn't have any method. So only JVM understands when I implement a when I implement serializable to a class, then JVM understands that I can, but I can do that serialization, convert that object to byte stream, and get that back to the object. Okay, serialization process is implemented by object input stream and object output stream. So once I will tell you detail about file system, I will tell you input stream, file input stream, and more detail about file. For now, you can understand here is serialization is the serialization process is implemented by these two IO classes, input output classes, that is object input stream and object output stream. Object input stream means you are streaming the object, and you are reading the object, that is object input stream. While reading the object from the stream, that is called object input stream, and while writing the object into the stream, that is object output stream. So for read you use output object input stream, for write you will use object output stream. Okay, so whenever we do the serialization, we have to maintain the state. The state can be maintained by its serialization ID. So whenever you do the serialization, what you need to do, you need to implement serializable, as well as you have to create one long static final variable, which is called serialization ID. The name of the variable is serialization version UID. It is a basically version control in serialization. So suppose you have some serialization ID into your class. Once you do the serialization of that object, so it will be versioned with that serial version UID. So once you try to get back, you have to use the same serial version UID to get the object back from the byte stream. So serialization ID is a version control in serialization to ensure that during deserialization the same class is loaded. If you're changing the serialization ID, you cannot do the deserialization. What you need to do, you need to again do the serialization, and using the new, that is changed serialization ID, you can deserialize. So for deserialization, to get deserialization, that means to get the object from your byte stream, you need to have the same serialization ID that you have used when you have serialized the object to byte stream. So serialization serial version UID should be maintained, as when you change anything in the class, you should upgrade the serial version ID. So so that the you can once you change anything in the class, you need to upgrade the serial version ID, so that it will help you to the good to so that it will help you in serialization and deserialization. What kind of objects we cannot serialize? Suppose I have a class, I have 10 fields, and I want to serialize. But there is some exception cases where few attribute I don't want to serialize. So to avoid a particular field to be serialized, what we can do, we have to mark those fields as a static, or we can mark as a transient. So transient, if I mark any variable as a transient, that will not be persisted. Here, when I say persist, I am persisting the object state into the file system. Same time, when you are trying to do persisting your object into a database using some object relationship mapping tool, transient variable will not be persist. So you can see that transient variables are not serialized, and a static member, that is not available at the object level, it is available at class level. So static members will not take part in serialization process. So to uh, to avoid any particular field not to take part in serialization process, you need to mark as either transient or static. Okay, so when we write the object, that is object, nothing but object states, to file, that is called serialize. When we read the serialized object, that is called deserialization. Okay, so you need to understand this concept of serialization and deserialization. Okay, what once I do the serialization, what can what can I change in the class? Okay, that that can impact the deserialization. Okay, so that is something called compatible changes and incompatible changes. So compatible changes means I have an object that I have serialized. I have serialized the object states. Uh, then I want to do some modification in class. Once I have done the modification, that modification can be compatible or incompatible. So if it is compatible, while doing the deserialization, you can get the old, I mean, you can get the persisted object which you have already serialized. But if you are doing some incompatible changes, then you cannot get that object back. You cannot deserialize. So this is this. There are so that's reason there are two type of things: compatible changes and incompatible changes. Okay, so let's talk about first incompatible changes. So you cannot remove implementation of serializable or change to externalizable. I will tell you externalizable later. So externalizable is something like it is kind of serialization. It is kind of serializable interface. Only thing is that it is faster than serializable, and serializable is marker interface, but externalizable is not a marker interface. It has read external and write external. Okay, so once you have object and you have serialized it, then you cannot change the implementation to either you cannot remove the implementation of serializable, or you cannot change to from serializable to externalizable. Okay, that way that is called incompatible change. If you do that, you cannot deserialize the object that you have already serialized. Okay, so second is you cannot alter the position of class in the hierarchy. Suppose the class which you have serialized, after doing the serialization, you cannot change the position of that class into the in the hierarchy. Since the fully qualified class name is written as part of byte stream, okay, this change will result in the creation of an incompatible stream. So that's reason, please avoid it. Next is you cannot change the name of the class or the package it belongs to. Okay, that will cause the problem while doing the deserialization. So these are the few incompatible changes. Let's talk about compatible changes. Compatible changes means when you make the change after doing the deserialization. After doing the serialization, if you make some changes in the class, you can still deserialize the object which you have already serialized, like adding the new variable in the class. Okay, you can keep on adding, so it will not impact the old one. Changing the variable from transient to non-transient. Okay, so as I said, transient means it will not take part in serialization. If you change to non-transient, so it will start taking the part in serialization process. But the object is already serialized, so the deserialization may not will not be impacted because of this moving from transient to non-transient. Same thing applies for moving from static to non-static. So when you convert a static field to non-static, it will not impact the deserialization process. Okay, it is just like adding a new field. Okay, because when you say static, it will not take part in serialization, but once you convert from a static to non-static, it will start taking the part into the serialization. Okay, so but it will not have any impact on the doing the deserialization. Once you start doing the once you create a new serialized object, then new non-transient field and new non-static field will be serialized. Okay, subclass of serialized class also serialized. So subclass of serialized class is also serialized. Means if I have a class which is superclass and that is implementing serializable, so any class that is extending this superclass will also be serialized. Serializing the subclass of a non-serialized superclass. If your superclass is not serialized, means it is not implementing the serializable, and subclass which is implementing the serializable, and of course it is extending the superclass, then only subclass will be serialized. Okay, the content of superclass will not be serialized, right? And JVM has full control on serialization. As a programmer, as a application, it will not have control on serialization. We have control on externalization, Okay, so I will tell you externalization once I complete the working example of serialization. Okay, so let's go to Eclipse and try to understand how it works.